Hi, everybody. Are you ready for another story time? Have you ever been to a parade? Where I live, we have a few big parades every summer. They have lots of bands and horses. Ours have lots of old wagons and floats. They're so much fun, and lots of people line the streets. Today, our story is about a parade for just one person. It was a very exciting time, and many people were visiting the town of Jerusalem to attend the feast of the Passover. On the morning of the day of the parade, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples to find a wild colt that would be tied to the side of the road, and to bring that colt to him. He also told the disciples to tell the owners of the colt, if they asked, why they were taking the colt, to say, "The Lord has need of it." So, sure enough, when the disciples went looking, they found a colt tied to the side of the road, and they gave the owners the message that Jesus had sent. Now, those disciples put their coats on the donkey colt because they didn't really have a saddle, and Jesus sat right on top of it. Soon there were crowds of people that wanted to see Jesus, and they started throwing their coats in the road and cutting branches from the trees and throwing those in the road and waving those branches up and down, saying, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna! Hosanna!" They were making such a ruckus that pretty soon there were some Pharisees in that crowd. And they said, "Hey, teacher, tell these people to quit shouting." Jesus said, "If these people are silent, the rocks will immediately begin to shout." Wow, shouting rocks? I've heard rocks make lots of noise when they're falling from the mountains, but I sure haven't heard a rock yell. Have you? Jesus and the crowd continued into the city, and the people kept shouting, "Hosanna! Hosanna to the Son of David!" It must have been quite a parade. It would have been incredible to be part of that parade. The people in the city were so excited. Some were asking, "Who is this king?" And others in the crowd were saying, "Jesus, he is the prophet from Nazareth of Galilee." What a parade. Would you like to hear what Jesus did after the parade? He went to the temple, and he looked around at everything that was going on. But that parade of his took a long time, and it was getting toward the end of the day. So he went to Bethany with his disciples to have dinner and to get some sleep. In the morning, Jesus and his disciples headed back to Jerusalem. Jesus was hungry, and down the road he saw a fig tree on the side of the road. He stopped to eat some of the figs, but there weren't any, just a bunch of leaves. Do you know how disappointing that is when you see what you think is an apple tree or an orange tree, and you get there and there's no fruit? Jesus said, "No one will ever eat figs from this tree ever again." And then Jesus and his disciples arrived in Jerusalem and went right back to the temple. When they got there, Jesus saw that there were people buying and selling things in the temple. And the people that were selling animals for sacrifice for a lot more money than they should have. They were cheating people. So Jesus got upset and started flipping the tables and the chairs and chasing all those sellers and money changers out of the temple. He said, "My house is supposed to be a place of prayer, but you've turned it into a den of thieves." People were still very excited about seeing Jesus, and soon blind people and lame people, that means people that have trouble walking, came to see him, and Jesus healed them. The kids in the crowd were so excited they started singing and yelling, "Hosanna to the Son of David." Do you think they were remembering the parade from the day before? I think so. There were chief priests and scribes there too, and they asked Jesus if he had heard what the children were saying. And he said, "Yes, I heard them. Haven't you read those words in the scriptures? Out of the mouths of children and babies, you have prepared praise. Jesus was remembering the verse in Psalm 8, verse 2. That whole chapter of Psalms is a beautiful worship song to God. That evening, Jesus returned to Bethany with his disciples to spend some time with some very dear friends. What did the people do to praise Jesus? Yeah, they sang and they yelled. I'm sure they probably were clapping their hands and waving the palm branches. What would you do if you found out Jesus was coming to your town? Would you do the same thing? Sing and cheer and yell? I sure hope so. Well, goodbye for now.